Hey guys, John here, back with another video. So this one I wanted to talk about this whole Upwork scam thing because, it may seem like I do this fairly often or whatever, or maybe too much, but I get this so much that I just sort of feel like I need to keep addressing it. And the big thing for me, you can see this comment here, and this is sort of one thing, but this one particular one doesn't. But a lot of these end up having people who will come in and chime in on these and will be sort of like, oh, really? I didn't know that. Or is this really true? And you have people who've never maybe actually messed with Upwork or whatever who will get sort of convinced by these things. And so I feel the need to sort of constantly talk about this because I think it's such a missed opportunity. And more than that, I think this is really bigger than Upwork, really. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I really do want you to take a minute and sort of think about this as if this is something that you're wondering about. But anyway, let me get into what I want to talk about. So I want to sort of give this proper context about where I'm coming from. So web development was the first thing that I came across in my life that I believed really deep down that was my way out. And I've talked about this before, but I came from a dirt poor family. I lived in a trailer house. It was a rundown, dirty trailer house, in fact. There were days, 3, 4, 5 days at a time at different points where, I didn't have anything to eat. That sort of poverty that a lot of people think doesn't actually exist in the United States is sort of what I went through. And when you grow up like that, if you've experienced that, you'll know this, but you're always sort of looking for a way out, something to get you out of it. Now, for some people, that's sports like football or basketball. For some people, it's music. Some people, it's getting a degree. That's sort of what they latch onto. But whatever it is, you latch onto something as your sort of way out of that life, and you tend to kind of put all of your focus and push all your chips in on that one thing because you think you see that as your one shot. And for me, that's what web development was when I came across it. And so I spent a lot of years getting really good at it. I poured my heart and soul into it. I stayed up way too many hours late at night working on it and trying to master it because I felt like it was my one shot. And if I didn't make this work, I didn't really have any other options, and I'd just sort of be stuck. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't be, as poor as my family growing up was, but, I'd be stuck in some boring, low-paying job that I really didn't like, working with a bunch of people I really couldn't stand, and probably the biggest thing, no real hope for ever getting out of it, and that's what I just couldn't abide that, so I had to do something, and I saw web development as my way out, and so I spent a lot of time getting good at it, and I did get good. But then, again, if you've been through this, you sort of know this. When it came time to now actually start doing this for a living, making money doing this, getting paid to code for other people, I quickly realized that being good at coding, the technical side of stuff, wasn't going to be enough. And I remember very vividly one of the first experiences I had with this was when I put my profile up on what was then Elance, it's now Upwork. And that was a big deal for me. It took me a long time just to get to that point, to put myself out there like that. And so it was this big thing, and the response I got sort of devastated me because it was crickets. It was nothing. I didn't get any activity, any responses, nothing. And it's really hard for me to put into words how mad that made me. I remember thinking to myself, like, why can't just one effing thing go my way? For once in my life, is it too much to ask for something, one thing to be easy? Does everything have to be hard? And I can feel those emotions, and it gets me a little worked up now just thinking about it. Now, I don't say all that for you to sort of feel sorry for me or anything like that. I mean, things are good now, so I'm good. But I say all that so you know that I get it. I get it when people go through that, and we all have this, there's all this social media now, and people get upset and they start posting about how Upwork is a scam and all that. If Twitter or YouTube or back then were what they are now, when I was going through all of that, yeah, I'd probably have went on a tirade too. So I understand where it comes from. The thing for me and why I feel like I need to continually bring this up is that it's just not true. And so a lot of people can get misled when people say this sort of thing. And so I'll continue just with my own example. After I calmed down a little bit from being as mad as I was, I did what I think any rational person does in that situation. I started researching. I just sort of thought, well, I'm used to this. I'm used to having to scratch and claw for everything. So let me just figure this out then too. And sort of as the aside, when I talk about this being bigger than sort of Upwork or all of this, that's sort of what I'm talking about, is this mentality of just continuing to move forward. But that's maybe for another day. But when I started doing this research, what I found changed everything. And I've mentioned this before, but maybe not in this detail. I came across a series of blog posts where, again, Upwork now, Elance then is what it was. They explained how their algorithms work. Now, when I think back on it now, it's kind of hard to believe. It's sort of like if Google had just put out exactly how their algorithms work. Today, people would be all over that. But these freelancing sites were still sort of getting popular, and so these posts, even though they were out there, explained exactly how the algorithm worked, which would, again, today would be a huge thing. These posts were actually pretty obscure. Nobody really talked about them. And now, of course, since then, and the popularity of these has grown, those posts have been deleted. But when I read them, they're about what you would imagine. A light bulb sort of went off. It was like, oh, and it became obvious what was going on and why no one was hiring me. And most importantly, it became obvious what I needed to do to fix it. And so that's what I did. I went to my profile. I completely rewrote it. There was a lot of things I actually removed that I had on there. I started adding in things that now were obvious omissions. And it didn't take long. That first job came in. It was my very first job on Upwork was a $2,000 job. I got another one shortly after that, got a couple hourly rate jobs, got a $3,001, and it sort of just went on and on and on and on and on. And before I knew it, I had to turn my availability off because I was just overwhelmed with job invites. And because of how I grew up, I was having a hard time saying no to work and saying no to money. And I was starting to get burned out. But the point of all of this is just to simply point out the before and after there. Nothing changed about Upwork, right? It was the same before as it was after. Nothing changed about me or my skill or my experience. It was all exactly the same when I was getting no work to when I was suddenly getting all of this work. What changed was my understanding of Upwork and how to present myself there. That's it. So while I get that people get frustrated when they're not getting work on Upwork, and there are other sort of side issues where dealing with support or real legitimate things that come up. But when people get frustrated about just getting work and they start saying Upwork is a scam. Again, I understand it, but it's really just not true. And the big thing here is the reality of all of this is that ultimately they and anyone who sort of believes what they're saying are the ones missing out. Because for anyone who wants to freelance, Upwork is, as far as I know, I think it still is, the largest freelancing platform on the planet. So the opportunity that's there is immense. And you see freelancers over there that make, have earnings of $500,000, $1 million, agencies with 3 million. I think I've seen one with 32 million. The other, I mean, it's crazy the amount of, when people want to find a freelancer, it's one of the very first places that they go. So the opportunity is immense if you can figure out how it works. So again, no, it's not a scam. It's just not going to hand you work either, right? It's not designed to just have work fall in your lap, which seems like the mentality a lot of people have towards it. So that's sort of just what I wanted to say on that. Now, of course, if you want to learn what I discovered in those blog posts and how to rework your profile and your bidding strategy to take advantage of those algorithms, learned what I learned that day, then it's all in my freelancing on Upwork course on Skillshare. And in case you're wondering, yes, Upwork today still operates on those same basic principles. Now, they've gotten a lot more sophisticated, and I'll probably talk about that at some point, but the other underlying principles are exactly the same. And when you see it, what you'll realize is it has to be that way because they couldn't do what they do otherwise. So their algorithms have to be the way that they are. Anyway, if you head on over to Upwork101.com, you'll see a big yellow button there where you can get 2 months of Skillshare for free. And that way you can take the entire course, cancel anytime before the 2 months is up, and you can learn everything that I learned that day and from that point forward without ever paying a penny. But I do want to give you a fair warning. This isn't a lot of people sometimes think this is some 5-second trick. It's not. There's research, there's work. So if you're just looking for gimmicks, then don't enroll because it's not going to work for you. But outside of that, again, the link is Upwork101.com. All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.